All right, let's take a look at this AVGO here, and let's go kind of through the checklist, if that's what you want to call it. Do we have the range on this stock? Right, we got a really big range here. Market open, this thing closed at about 116, opens up right here at about 120, $4 move, and then immediately as soon as the market opens, you can see big para, big push right up here at 124. So you got about a $10 move since the close of business the previous day. So you've got significant range there, and you got that. You got the speed too. You can see the speed pushing. You've got the volume. So you've got all of the requirements. Now on this one, we don't have a 90 RSI. If you see these little icons here at the upper chart, this is an earnings play. So I like to give earnings plays just a little bit more room. So what we want to do to eliminate the anxiety and make these trades go smooth is we want to think ahead here. We're pushing 125 here, the whole number. So first we want to see how this acts towards the whole number. And if it kind of pushes above 125, we'll go to 126 next. When we look at the bottom chart, just down here, the daily chart, we're right at resistance. So you can see it's slowing up just a little bit over this recent resistance. And then the red line here, the 50 moving average, is just a few dollars off of that. So we've got some upper levels that we're interested in initiating shorts. As I said, because it's earnings play, we don't have a full 90 RSI, which is extremely overbought. Still can have a little bit more room. It's an expensive stock, so I'm going to give it a few minutes here. See how it acts around 125. If it starts to lose 125, I'm going to go in, use the pivot up top as a stop loss. Hopefully it'll squeeze over 126 and give a better entry. But for the sake of time, I'm going to come back, see if I can get an entry, see how this thing plays out. All right, this thing eventually loses 25 here, so I went in with a starter position here of 600. And this is what I like to do sometimes. Like when you go into a parabolic here, you can do it two different ways. You can go in at your normal position size that you set based on your risk, your experience level and such, and you can use a stop. That's some certain pivot like we have here. If you look at this 5-minute chart up top, we do have a little pivot just up towards a high, right around 126. So you could go in here at this 125.50 and put a stop up there towards high a day, and that's it. Me, I like to leave a little bit of squeeze room. I'm going to be working off of this moving average up here, unless it actually stays down here for a while. So if it immediately shoots up to 127, I've left room to add to this trade. If not, and it holds this level, flags or trends sideways, then I will use the high a day as a stop. So you can see it's kind of bouncing around, being a little tough here to start with, but we got a nice para. We don't have the full 90 RSI, so it could require a little bit of work, but I do like the big old para here. If we could just kind of pull here a little bit, get underneath of about 125, it should flush. You've got a, if you can see it, it's right up here up top. Got this little, it's a VWAP there, the little gray line is VWAP. See if we can get to that. If not, in a second, I'll come back. See if we can get this push here. That's being pretty slow. If we don't get it in a second here, I'll just keep you updated here on it. Could take a little time here just by the way this one's working. But as long as we don't go back up over high a day, eventually it should run out of steam. You can see the volume already pulling here a little bit. I think 125 is the level. If we can just kind of get a good push underneath of that, we should be able to connect at least with a VWAP, get about $1 on this. It's trying. Normally what I like to see on these is a really thick flush, like, you know, you want straight up and straight down, but they don't always work that way. You know, this is what you have to do at traders. You have to trust the high RSI. You have to trust the setup here. It may take a little bit of time, but it should pull off of these numbers here pretty good soon. We're back at this 125. Now if it gets down to this VWAP, that gray line I mentioned, see how it acts. It might be a sticking point for this stock here in the short term. Well, it's taking a little bit here, so I'll just come back in a second here. Keep you updated on this. Alright, I expanded this just to get a closer view. It was really, really small there. So you can see, I got the line drawn here. That was the last pivot on this candle. And now you've got this one here. You can see it's putting up a fight. This 125 is now becoming a pretty good number. So in this case right here, you know, you're not really getting the flush that you want. You have a couple of options that you can make here. You definitely, I think the stop now for sure is this high at day pivot, just slightly above 126. If it's unable, you know, it may fester here for a little bit. See how much every time it gets just a dip underneath of 125, it gets scooped back up, and that just so happens to be my price. So I'm going back and forth here, in and out of green, in and out of red. I mean, you can make the decision however you want as a trader. You can scratch out of this thing, you can put the stop in at high, or you can stay in it, which is what I'm going to do. I think if we can get down to this level here, I'm going to go with the stop at high and see if we can eventually get back up underneath. But right now, 125 is an issue. So if we break 125, or one way or the other, you know, for the sake of time, if we go up over high, I'll cut this. If we break that 125, then you know, I'll walk you through it either way, so you can kind of see. It's taking a little bit longer than I want, so I don't want to waste a bunch of time. Just want you to see how the action is working at each one of these levels. So we're able to at least establish that here, right? You see how 125 is right now. That's the do or die level, so to speak. If we hold that level, probably going to rip again. If it can break underneath of that or have failed bounces off of that number, we should roll over here. So sometimes it takes a little bit of patience. You have to work at it. You know, wish all of our trades were real easy, but we'll see what happens here with this one. So far, looks pretty good. Well, patience is an understatement. This is a long one here, but you know, it's long for a trader, but not long in terms of time. Only about 20 minutes here, 25 minutes. But here's what I want to update you on. There's been a couple of bounce attempts here in this trade, and it's never been able to reclaim that. So each and every candle also tells a story. So this is a great lesson here. You're learning how this stuff works. And one of the things we do sometimes, right, when I mention entry, exit, everything in between, this is the in between. This is the stuff that weighs on your psychology. And I said, as long as we don't break out over high, we should be good. But what I want to draw your attention to is, if you look at each one of these candles, got a nice pull. You see how the wick is on top of that? So every time this thing's broken out, it's sold. Now you're finally breaking this. It should be a pretty smooth move. That sounds good, huh? Smooth move at this point. Finally losing that VWAP. Now it put up a fight there for 15 minutes. But the key was this. Each and every time that it did, you see the wicks on top of that 5-minute chart. Very important. Meaning each time it broke up there, it couldn't gain traction, instantly sold off. The next bar comes by, pops, instantly sells off. This one right here pops, instantly sells off. But this one now has broken clean of this 125. So let's see where we can go. Also, you might find yourself in this situation many times. This is what traders like to do, is you struggle a little bit with a trade like this. It kind of puts you about 10-15 minutes worth of pressure. And then finally you get green on it. You're like, hey, I'm going to cut it. Well, that's not what we want to do. I mean, we're here to make money, right? So, you know, we're finally breaking down. We owe it to ourselves. You know, we came all this distance. We want to sample some of this wine here. So I'd like to at least get $1. I'm going to target $1 here. Let me see if we can connect with this moving average right here. So I'm going to put an order right down here at 124. See if I can get some fills for $1. Getting close here. So this would be a pretty good trade. See if I can get a fill. Well, there. Got it. So not bad. Got a nice little move. $600. Took a little while. Took about half an hour, but I think you see it. Got a nice little fade here. Nice little trade. Working off the parabolic. Trusting the RSI. And trusting what you see around you. May flush a little bit more, but I think that's pretty good.